What is up, guys? So today what I'm doing is I'm doing a using Blender for Farming Simulator. This is going to be a series I do. We'll see how many episodes I get. I really haven't planned this out. I just knew I wanted to do something to help people jump into Blender more and using it for Farming Simulator. So this is episode 1 of a series that I'm going to be doing. This is really just getting Blender, getting it set up, getting it how you like it. So the first thing you need to do is you need to get Blender, and you'll go to blender.org for that. Um, all these links will be in the description down below. You'll need most of these programs. You'll at least need to do 4 downloads from what I'm going to tell you. So you'll need to get Blender. You'll go ahead and you'll download the latest Blender. In this current day of filming, it is 2.79B. That is the one that I'm running right now. So you'll want to get Blender, download that, install it. I'm not going to go over just simple installing of stuff, because really by now you should know how to install programs. So go ahead and download that and install that. The second thing you're going to want to get is you're going to, let me just reload that. You're going to want to go to Giants Developer Network, and you're going to want to download 2 things. You're going to want to download Giants Editor, and at this day of filming again, it is Giants Editor 8.1.0. That is the latest Giants Editor that you'll want to download, because you will need that to take your models from Blender, and then they go into Giants Editor, and then you do the final stuff in Giants Editor, and then you put it in the game. You work with Giants Editor and getting it in game at the same time. So you need Giants Editor to get your stuff in game. You can't do just Giants Editor though, because you also need Blender to do the 3D modeling and the texturing. So you get Giants Editor, you download that, you install that, that's good to go. The other thing that you need to download off of this website is you need to download the Exporter plugin. So you will download Blender Exporter Plugins 8.0.0 is the current latest one. And you want to download that and put that in a spot where you know it will be, because you will need that later. And I'm about to tell you that after I show you the next thing. So the next thing that you need to download is the material selector for Farming Simulator 2019. And with it being Farming Simulator 2019, we now have UDIM textures. A lot better way of texturing than how we used to do it. A lot more of the mods look the same now. Instead of, I have a sheet of colors from 2015, 2017 of different colors people were saying was John Deere green. Obviously, none of us really know John Deere green, but there was 3 or 4 people who had a different idea of what John Deere green was. So you had 3 or 4 different looking models, and the models weren't as, I should say textures, weren't as easy to change as they are now, in my opinion. So you want to download this UDIM material selector, and you're going to want to hang on to that with your exporter. So you have both of these. The exporter, if it installs right, is an exe. So you're just going to go ahead and you're going to run that exe file like any other installation. The material selector is it's a PNY file. It's a Python file, and you're going to need to put that in the scripts add-on folder in the Blender. So where that is, it's the same spot that the exporter gets installed if you need to do a manual installation of the exporter, which that tells you when you need to do a manual installation of the exporter. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to go search, you're going to hit %, app data, and then hit % again, and you're going to hit enter. And that opened on my other window. Let me just drag that over quick. And you're going to come to this. There's obviously other programs in here, but the one you're looking for is the Blender Foundation. You're going to open that. You're going to go into Blender. You're obviously going to go into the Blender you have. 2.79 is what I have. You're going to go into scripts, add-ons, and here is where these are. See, I got my screencast key script. I have the Blender exporter, which I forgot I need to double check and make sure I have the latest one. And then I have the UDIM one. So you would put that in here, and then it's in the correct spot, but you need to go and install it. Or this is where I put mine, and then you need to go install it. So I'm just going to drag this window out of the way, and I'm going to open up Blender. So this would be the first time we're opening up Blender. So this is what Blender looks like when you open it, Blender 2.79b, and this is what it looks like. But we're not worried about that yet. So we're going to go into File, User Preferences, and I'm already in the add-ons because I had to do a few other things in here. So if you need to install this, you'll hit Install from File, and then this would be where you would find that. So I'm just going to, I know I just did this, so I have it saved. I'm going to paste this in there. This is where my scripts are. So I got my screencast key like I showed you guys in the file browser. I have my UDIM in there, and I have my i3D exporter. So what you're going to want to do is, say I have, like I already know I have these installed. So, oops. Yeah, I have to spell stuff out sometimes when I type. But what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to come in here, and you see I have these ticked already. You will not have these ticked if you first install them. So you're going to want to tick them. Here's my UDIM, I have that ticked. And then what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to hit Save User Settings. When you save user settings, every time you launch the Blender program, it will load these plugins automatically. So every time you launch Blender, it'll load these plugins automatically. You'll be good to go. So I'm just going to go ahead, I'm going to close that. And I'm going to just minimize Blender for now, because we don't need that right now. So the fourth program or fourth download that you need to choose is a photo editing software, because the textures that come out of Blender are going to be photos, and you're going to need to do some more work to those photos to get them to make a correct specular map or normal, whatever you're working on at that moment. You need to use a photo editing program. So the one of my choice where I do the bulk of my work is Photoshop. I'm a little bit more used to that, but it does cost money to get it. It's a monthly fee currently. So I like to use Photoshop for the bulk of my photo work. The second one that I still use, it's free, it's called GIMP. GIMP is a free one. It has a lot of the same features of Photoshop, just not as user-friendly as the current Photoshop. I've used GIMP for years when I didn't have Photoshop. It's a good alternative. So the third one that you can download is paint.net, and I know a lot of people use this. I currently have started using this. There's a thing that Serious Mod was doing, and he was using paint.net, and I just kind of switched over to that just to try it because I was having problems getting it to work right in Photoshop. It's mostly just probably I wasn't using the correct things in Photoshop, the correct numbers, because numbers don't always translate between programs for what Serious Mod was saying and what I was trying to do. So Paint.net is another great thing that people use all the time. So you just need to pick one, and then once you know which one you like, you'll stick with that. Or, I mean, I'm using 3, so I guess I shouldn't really say stick with that. Just go with what you're comfortable with. Don't listen to what I say. If you can get a good result out of a program that you're used to, it's better to be comfortable in a program than uncomfortable and jumping around all the time. So those are the first things that you need to do when you get into installing Blender and stuff like that. So after you have all that installed, you have your photo software ready. I'm just gonna bring Blender up again, okay? So this is, you already saw the opening thing when I opened Blender, but this is what Blender is gonna look like when you open it. You'll have a camera here, you'll have a cube here. I'm gonna turn on screencast. Sorry about that, guys. There we go. You'll have a camera here, you'll have a cube, you'll have a light. Really none of this stuff, except for the cube, I guess, depending on what you're making, we need when we start. Generally, when I'm starting, I delete the cube anyways. I start from a fresh blank canvas, always. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right-click on these. I'm going to right-click on the light, and I'm going to hit delete. And it's going to ask me if I want to delete it. I'm just going to hit enter. I'm going to do the same thing on all of these. So I deleted all that. And there's one other thing I'm going to do. When I'm building the way I build in American units. I know I could build in metric units, but I'm from America. American units just make more sense to me, even though we have stupid fractions and not decimals. But that's a whole different story. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put the unit presets. You just click on this little tab right here, and I'm going to put the unit presets in empirical unit system. So that means anything I build, any sizes that Blender is telling me, will be in empirical system. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this as the startup file. So now every time that I start Blender, this is what it will look like. I'll have none of that stuff that I had to delete. I'll have my Imperial system already loaded. So when I fire up Blender, it'll be ready 100% for me to just go in, create a mesh, and start modeling from there. So like I said, guys, this is going to be episode 1 of a Blender series that I'm doing. I'm kind of not really going to go into Blender basics too much, hopefully, but mostly just how I use it for Farming Simulator. So look forward to episode 2 where I dive into a little bit more of how to do things within Blender.